start this. Okay. So the first thing is I want to start with the Mishnah in Tainis, where the Mishnah talks about Big Kitzer, 5 things that happen on Tisha B'Av. I want to go through those Gemaras, and if we have time, we'll go into the Gemara and get into the Gemara that talks about the story of the Churban specifically. Halachically speaking, today, after Chatzos, through the end of the Tainis, we don't generally learn things other than the halachas of Tisha B'Av, Hilchas Avelos, and stories about the Churban. There are parts of Gittin, starting on Daf Nun Hey, that detail the Churban, as well as a couple of lines of Gemara and Chagiga. There's a Gemara in Sanhedrin, about Amid and a little bit, and a couple of lines here and there throughout Shas that discuss different. You could turn on the Rikon. It doesn't have to be so hot in here. By the Churban there was a big fire. It was very hot, but we're allowed to. We don't take showers, but we're allowed to have air conditioning. So there's a couple of lines here and there throughout Shas that discuss the Churban, that discuss the Beis Hamikdash, and I want to touch on some of them. So let's start with the Mishnah. The Mishnah is on Chavav Amud Beis. So Chamisha Dvarim happened on Tisha B'Av. The same Mishnah that we discussed on Shavuos B'Tammuz, the 5 things happened on Shavuos B'Tammuz, we have the Chamisha B'Tisha B'Av, 5 things happened on Tisha B'Av. What were they? B'Tisha B'Av Nigzar Ala V'Seinu Shla Yichnesu La'oretz. Number 1, it was a Gzeira on Klal Yisrael. On the Dara Midbar Rashi says, Im Yira Ish Ba'anoshim Eila Hador Hara Hazeh Sa'oretz. That was when there was a Gzeira that they were not allowed to enter into Eretz Yisrael because of Chetem Raglim. V'charav Bayis Rishon Ubashniya, the first and second Beis Hamikdash were destroyed. How many years apart? Did anybody know how many years apart it was?
410? No.
The first Beis Hamikdash stood for 410 years. 70 years later was when the second Beis Hamikdash was rebuilt. And 420 years after that, the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed again. And we didn't get the third one yet. We're waiting. Good morning. So, by the way, tomorrow one of the halachas is that you don't say good morning to people. And if someone does say good morning, so like you grumble back them, or something like that. Anyways, so if the Chav ran the good morning today, what?
Before Shabbos.
Well, always before Shabbos.
So you talking about Tisha B'Av?
Tisha B'Av. Yeah, well, that's what they say, that Tisha B'Av is Yeshiva Bach's favorite day. You wear tefillin by mincha, you don't wear shoes, you don't learn, it's all the get to Zachin. Anyways, I'll call upon him. The first Beis Hamikdash was 410 years. The second Beis Hamikdash was 420 years. The Gemara says, not here, the Gemara Yuma says that there were many differences in the first and second Beis Hamikdash. And Chazal talk about this in a few places also, not specifically in the Gemara, but elsewhere in Chazal. The Ikar Hashras Hashchina, the common denominator between all those 5 things, was that the Ikar Hashras Hashchina that existed in the Bayis Rishon did not exist in the Bayis Sheni. What did exist though in the Bayis Sheni, there was a transfer of power, if you will. There was a transition where instead of the Ikar Hashras Hashchina being on a building with the great Hashras Hashchina, with Ruach HaKodesh, with Nevuah, with all kinds, with Aaron, with the Urim V'Tumim, with all these kinds of things, which did not exist in the second Beis Hamikdash, but the Ikar Hashras Hashchin in the second Beis Hamikdash was on the Lemdei Torah, was on the Talmidei Chachamim. The Talmidei Chachamim were the ones that took the Hashras Hashchina that made Hashras Hashchina alive. It was in the second Beis Hamikdash. The Gemara says in Brachos, very famous Gemara, that Miyayim Shachar Beis Hamikdash Ein LaKadosh Baruch Hu Ala Daled Amos Shel Halacha B'Lvad. That there are 4 Amos of Halacha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu still holds on to, so to speak. We say in the Slichas on Tanesim and Tishrei, Elul Tishrei, we say Ve'ein shiur rak haTorah hazois. The only thing left that we have is the Torah. It doesn't just mean that the only thing left that we have, Ve'ein shiur rak haTorah hazois. The Torah is the only thing that keeps Klal Yisrael going throughout the goals. That's 100% true. The only thing that we still have from the original Beis Hamikdash is the Torah. So I think it's the Chedush Rim that says, there's always the debate, do we make a barbecue in the 9 days or we don't make a barbecue in the 9 days? I'm finishing Makis anyways, Or I finished Makkas 300 years ago and I'm making a siyum now in the 9 days. I could have a hot dog, or I could have a steak. So I think it comes from the Chiddushei Harim. Why is it that some people, like, they make it Indian to run after siyumim? You know, some people, they run after the siyumim and they dafka don't serve fleishigs, you know, or the other night. But either way, whichever way you're looking at it, what's the point of the siyumim in the 9 days? Whether you can eat the fleishigs, you're not going to eat the fleishigs, it's right, it's wrong. What's the point? The idea is because when you have a shleimus in Torah, like a person who finishes a Masechta, so we just said that Ein LaKadosh Baruch Hu Daled Amashal Halacha B'lvad. In these Daled Amashal Halacha, the Churban didn't happen. The Beis HaMikdash is still alive. In these Daled Amashal Halachas, if there's no Churban and the Beis HaMikdash is still alive, so why can't you enjoy a steak? Why can't you eat some hot dogs? Avada you could, But it has to be that you're really understanding this. Maybe I'm not giving musa to anybody, but that's anyway. So that's the first Beis HaMikdash, the second Beis HaMikdash. Interesting way, you want to know how many years the Beis HaMikdash stood for. The Chassam Sofer in the Drasha says that Yisachar, if you spell it with 2 sins, like you're supposed to, is Gematria 800 and... 800 and you said it. What did you say? 830. 410, 420, 830. That's how many years the Beis HaMikdash stood for. It's interesting, because Yisachar, in the Birkas Yankov, he's the one that's the Talmud Chacham. So it stems nicely with what we said before, that the Ikar Makom Ashras HaShchina is on the Talmidei Chachamim. V'nilkid of Beitar, and Beitar was captured. What was the story? So this we spoke about on Shavuos B'Tammuz. Ir Gedolah was a big city, Vo Yisrael Darmba, and there was a big Jewish population there, Mefsech Gittin, Parakanazakon, Asaka, the Rispak, Charav Beitar, that the side of the wagon caused the destruction of Beitar, which we spoke about on Shavuos B'Tammuz. And the last thing was V'necher Shaha'ir, the city of Yerushalayim was plowed over, as we know from the Gemara at the end of Makkas, that was a big chelik of the Churban. You know, because it's one thing if, you know, the buildings are still standing and the houses are still standing and it just looks like an abandoned city. So the truth is that, you know, if we want to come back in there, we could just move back in there because the infrastructure is still there. Necher Shaha'ir means that they plowed over the city, they knocked down they raised all the buildings, they knocked everything down, you can't move in there even if you wanted to. So that was a siman of the total, the final destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So that was the tragedy of that. That was interesting, and we spoke to Shavuos B'Tammuz, and I think it's kedai to mention it again. We know that in order to be misabel on something, to feel, you know, the Gemara says in Megillah, Yagati Matzasi Tamin, yeah? Yagati v'loy Matzasi. Okay, you know, lo Yagati Matzasi, that definitely doesn't happen. That's no such thing, right? Well, a person who's mi'ageh and learning, yeah? So Yagati Umatzasi, and he finds Tamin. So why is it that we use a lashon of Matzasi, that he found it? Why don't we say Yagati and he understood? Hevanti, I don't know, or Lamadati, or Chachamti, or Chidashti, he made a Chiddush. Why is it Yagati Matzasi? Why is it that we use a lashon of Mitzia? So the pshat is that there's also from the Chiddushei Harim that even when a person is learning Torah, it doesn't necessarily mean that even when a person works 3 days to answer a shver question that he had, at the end of the day, it all comes from Siyata D'Shmaya. That's the idea of a Mitzia. A Mitzia is you're walking down the street not expecting to find the money, and then there's $100 bill lying there. Oh, it's great, you know. You don't plan. You know, a person who goes to invest in business, right? So there's a plan, there's a cheshbon, there's a chachma to it. You know, sometimes it is a little bit taking a gamble, but, you know, for the most part, he's expecting to get something. A Mitzia is something that's unexpected. You walk down the street and you find it. A person learning, afal pi, that he's learning, afal pi, that he's being mechavan the right way, and he's thinking the right way, afal pi kain siyatim and shemayahu. The Gemara says, really Gemara. The Gemara says that Suki Shmai Talib the Hilchah says that needs Siyata D'Shmaya. That's a Mitzia. So a Mitzia means that we found something. Being misabel, meaning mourning the loss of something, is if we never lost it, how can we mourn the loss of it? Yeah? We don't know what the Beis HaMikdash looks like. We don't know what it means to have a Beis HaMikdash. We never saw it. the best that we could do is you see, there's two things. There's two things that we have to know about the Beis Hamikdash. Number one, the halachas that existed at that time, all the hilchas roim, all the hilchas karbonis, all the hilchas tumah v'tara, all the stuff that you say, well, why should I learn it? It's so not practical, right? Well, what if I tell you that Mashiach is coming today or tomorrow, Emir Hashem, right? You're going to have a Beis Hamikdash, yeah? Let's say next week we'll have the Beis Hamikdash already. You going to have any flying clue what to do? You have any clue how to be metahar yourself? You have any clue how many karbonis you're going to have to bring? You don't even know, do you even know which animals you can bring as a carbon? Don't bring a turtle, they're not going to take it. Huh? But don't bring your pet giraffe either, I don't think that would work either. Right? So, how can we experience the loss of something that we never even had? Yeah? So the most basic level, again, there's the etzem halachas, and there are mishnayos that paint a very nice picture of the exact structure of the Beis Hamikdash in Masechta Midas. And nowadays we have all kinds of picture mishnayos that have very nice diagrams and pictures of what the Beis Hamikdash looked like. You know, be'erach, based on the mishnayos and the mefarshim and the psukim, how the Beis Hamikdash looked. But then there's a second concept. Till this point, we're just discussing the physical aspect of the Beis Hamikdash. The kedusha that was in the Beis Hamikdash, the hashras hashchina in the Beis Hamikdash, is not something that's describable. Why am I saying that? Because if it would be describable, I'd be able to describe it to you, and I can't because I was never there. I never experienced it. It's an experience. It's not something I could tell you. You know, you ate ice cream. Describe to me the taste. You can't describe a taste like describing a color. Can't describe a color. It tasted like, this was like red, but it was like almost like brown. You're not describing, you're saying what the color was. How do you describe the Beis Hamikdash? So we said, the Gemara says in Brachis, that Kol mi sheyesh b'deya kilu nivna Beis Hamikdash b'yamav. Anybody who has knowledge, anybody who has deya, has das, is kilu the Beis Hamikdash was built in his days. I'm sure all of us here are quite wise people and quite smart people, or we definitely want to become smart people. So what's this got to do to Mazeh Kosher La Beis Hamikdash? What's this got to do to Beis Hamikdash? Hadrian says, very puzzling Gemara. Huh? Kol mi sheyesh b'deya ki'ilu nivneh Beis Hamikdash b'yamav. What does that mean? Anybody want to guess the taich? If you hear Shavas of Thomas, don't guess, then you better know it. Yeah? The pshat is like this. Rashi says in Chumash that the lashon of das means a chibur, it means a connection, a relationship. The Ramah wrote a sefer called Teres Ha'olah, and it's a sefer describing in very, very deeply the different aspects of the Beis Hamikdash, what they represented in the Olamus, and all kinds of Kabbalistic ideas and philosophical ideas. It's a wonderful sefer. Now they reprinted it, 2 big volumes with Nakudas for everybody to learn, yeah? So he asks this question in the Akdama to the Sefer Teres Ha'olah. And he says the following. He says, Kol mi sheyesh b'deya kilu nivneh Beis Hamikdash b'yamav. Pshat is like this. Pshat is that a person wants to connect to the Beis Hamikdash. He's yearning for the Beis Hamikdash. He wants the Beis Hamikdash. He doesn't know necessarily too much about what the Beis Hamikdash once was. But he knows that the Beis Hamikdash, he tries to learn about it, right? By the way, the Rambam wrote in the Yad HaChazaka, in Avodah, he has a whole section called Hilchas Beis HaBechira. That's the halachas of the Beis Hamikdash. How you build it, when you build it, what you build it with, what it needs, and what it does. I think that it's very important for us, if we want to get a sense of what the Beis Hamikdash was, to go through Mishnayos Midas and Talmud, and go through the Rambam over there, to see what was going. It was a very exciting place, and a regular day in the Beis Hamikdash was very exciting. There were a lot of karbonos, and there were a lot of the Levium were singing, and there were all kinds of offices and all kinds of organizations that were going on over there. Yeah, there were a lot of doctors running around over there. Yeah, the Kohanim weren't wearing shoes, right? They were wearing special clothing. There was everything was special in the Beis Hamikdash. There was nothing there that was without a reason. Everything was a cheshbon. Everything had very deep Seidas HaTorah involved in it. So Dr. Ramah, that a person who wants to connect to the Beis Hamikdash, Kol mi sheyesh b'deya, anybody who wants to have the connection to the Beis Hamikdash, it's ki'ilu nivneh Beis Hamikdash b'yamav. He could bring the Beis Hamikdash to life in his own lifetime. And it's as if the Beis Hamikdash is rebuilt. Because where a person's thoughts are, that's where he is. So a person who's thinking about, when he's in the base of Mikdash, it says by davening, when a person davens regularly, he should be mechaven keneged Kodesh HaKadoshim. He should think that he's standing in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And how could you imagine that you think of the Kodesh HaKadoshim? You'll use your imagination, that hopefully all of us were blessed with, that we're standing in the holiest place in the world. And this is the simplest way to be able to connect to the Beis HaMikdash. Just to think about it, imagine what it would be like that there'd be no Taurus in the world, and this is a place that we could go to and ask Hashem for whatever we want, and we'll get it. So it's true that Shlomo HaMelech was mispalel when he built the Beis HaMikdash, as the story says in Malachim, Aleph, that any guy that's going to come to the Beis HaMikdash and is going to be mispalel is going to get whatever he needs. Do not let him leave empty-handed. That's what Shlomo HaMelech davened for. And by the way, for the Yidden it was also like this. Obviously, there's a different anhaga in Shemayim that the Yidden have versus the Goyim. But I'll tell you what it says. The Medrash says, by the parish of bringing Bikurim, what was the big deal about Bikurim? So it's rather interesting because they bring from the Arizal that the mitzvah of Bikurim is to be misak in the chet and the meraglim. That the meraglim were choyte with the fruits of Eretz Yisrael, so we have to bring those fruits to the Beis HaMikdash, and we're mekadosh them, and we make a whole ceremony out of it to be misak in the chet and the meraglim. Okay, which is shaykh the Tisha B'Av, obviously, because the meraglim caused the bechiyah shalderis, and hopefully we'll get to that. But the Medrash says over there that a person comes to the Beis HaMikdash, the Medrash says, imagine you have to go to a king, yeah? How much paperwork you need to file in advance, how many phone calls you need to make in advance, yeah? And Aval Pikin, who says they're going to actually let you in? The king's tired, he's taking a nap, goodbye, Don't come today, come 3 years from now, yeah? The king himself doesn't know if he's going to be alive in 3 years from now, Veves, right? Obezak the Medrash that when a Yid brings Bikurim, he comes to the Beis HaMikdash and he asks HaKadosh Baruch Hu whatever he wants, and he doesn't leave it here until HaKadosh Baruch Hu fulfills his tefillah. Can you imagine? This guy's bringing some grapes and some figs, and a pomegranate on top, in some little basket. He goes to the Kohen, gives it to the Kohen, reads a few psukim. Obviously he's very happy, because they make a whole parade and a whole procedure, and the point is to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a very special, happy kind of a way. And he asks Hashem for whatever he wants and he gets it. Now, tefillah still exists. B'zman hazeh. Tefillah is b'makom karbonos. The one thing that we do have, aside from Torah, what we have is that tefillah is b'makom karbonos. Zokt Moshe Rabbeinu to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When the Beis HaMikdash is going to get destroyed and they don't have Bikurim, what can they do to connect to you? Zokt HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they'll daven 3 times a day. Davening, tefillah b'makom karbonos, b'makom tmidim, Zokt the Gemara. There's Tamid Shal Shachar, that's Shachris, Tamid Shal Beinu Arbayim, that's Mincha, and the Remakr of the Evorim and the P'darim at night, that's Tfilas Ma'ariv, that's Arvis, fine. But the concept is another nekuda. The Gemara says at the end of Menachos, and it's brought all over the place, somebody brings a chatas, somebody who learns the parish of a chatas, he brings a chatas. Somebody who learns the parish of an oila, the sugi of carbon oila, it's mechaper. Torah is mechaper. We know that from a lot of areas, right? Did we say over the story with Shammai and Hillel and the Ger that came to be Megar Galachas? Did we say the story yet this summer? I believe we did, huh? Not sure. We didn't talk about it. I'll say it over Bekitzer with the word that I always say. So Gemara Shabbos tells a story that a goy came to Shammai and he says, "Teach me the whole Torah Regalachas." So Shammai chased him away. Dochvay b'mas habinyan, he took a stick and chased him away. He came to Hillel and he says, "Teach me the whole Torah Regalachas." So he tells him, "Ma'adaloch sani lechavrach le'savet v'idach perusha zil gemar." He tells him that what you wouldn't like to be done to yourself, don't do to others, and the rest of it, the rest of the Torah, you'll go learn yourself. First of all, why is this the whole Torah? And he asked him to teach him the Torah Galacha, so why is he telling him that this is the rest? Go figure it out on your own. Huh? Zach Agav Rashi says that don't do to your friend is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's a separate shmuz. So the concept is that a person can be mechaper koloisik b'teres ha'olah kilukir v'olah koloisik b'teres chadas kilukir v'chadas. The concept is like this: every person in this world is mechuyev to complete all 613 mitzvahs. If he doesn't, he's got to come back until he finishes them. Let me ask you a question: are you a Kohen Gadol? Are you a Melech? Are you a Levi? No. So we got a huge problem over here. You're not a Melech, you're not a Kohen, you're not a Levi, and you're not a Kohen Gadol. And what about the women? What about men? There's so many mitzvahs that so many of them will say, well, what's it got to do with me? That's not applicable to me. So there's two ways to be Mekayim these all Taryag mitzvahs. There's two ways to do it. Number one, if you look at the Lashon of Shem Yichud, we say B'Shem Kol Yisrael. We say that we're doing this mitzvah together with the whole Klal Yisrael. Because Klal Yisrael as a whole is like one unit. Klal Yisrael is one unit. Kish Echad V'Lev Echad, one body, one unit, one person. And if we're doing the mitzvahs B'Shem Kol Yisrael, so if I'm a Kohen Gadol and you're a Melech and you're a this one and you're a Yisrael, so then all the pieces come together, all the pieces of the puzzle come together, and that's how a person can be Mekayim Taryag mitzvahs in one lifetime. The other way that we could be Mekayim all the mitzvahs is Kolois K'Teres Chadas Kilukir V'chatas. If I learn the parashiyas, if I learn the sugyas of the karbanis, of the Tumah and Tahara, of the Hilchos Roim, all these mitzvahs that we can't do b'zman hazeh, it's my lalav akasav kilu asoy. The Torah views it as if we did these mitzvahs. So what this Ger was saying, what this guy was saying to Shama and Hillel, he says, I want to know how I can be Mekayim the entire Torah, meaning all Taryag mitzvahs in one shot, without having to come back to this world to a second time to complete it again. A regal achas means a one shot. So he tells him, make sure that whatever you do it together with all of Klal Yisrael. V'idach perusha zil gamar. And the other mitzvahs, some mitzvahs you'll be able to do b'shem Kol Yisrael, the mitzvahs ma'asis that we have today. If you do them b'shem Kol Yisrael, so even if you can't do it, he could do it, right? And if he could, even if he can't do it, you could do it. And the other eitzah is to learn the parashas of the Torah over there. Derech Agav. The issue with the story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, which hopefully we'll get to in a little bit, is a person can say, there's a sefer called Yena Rekach on Eicha, it was written by Yismach Moshe, and he says a very good point. He makes a very, very good point in the beginning of the story of Kamsa Bar Kamsa. He says like this. He says, people think I have a whole bunch of friends, but I also have a whole bunch of guys that I don't like. So it's not a problem, because look, I only need to like the guys that I like. So these 10 guys, I like those 10 guys. I don't like those 10 guys. I'm indifferent about it. I couldn't care less. Zok there, that was exactly the problem of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Why does the Gemara have to speak out that he was a friend of Kamsa and he was the enemy of Bar Kamsa? He's medayik this in the Gemara, in Gittin. And he says that you see from here that it's not enough to just be friends with a few people, but it's that you can't be not friends with the other people. Because having sinned towards any other yid, unless the Rishonim, which you may be allowed to hate, some of them you're supposed to, we're not talking about them, right? So it's not enough just to love a few Jews, and it's okay if I don't love some other ones. So no, that's still going to be an issue of sinas chinam. And not only that, that is what the Gemara points a finger to and says it was this kind of sinas chinam which brought about the Beis Hamikdash. You know, we're going to allow these guys to join the baseball game, but not him. He doesn't know how to hit. He can't catch. He runs too slow. He runs too fast. He's too fat. He's too skinny. He's too tall. He's too short. What? And can't they like to say it is? Probably not. But if you hurt the guy's feelings, if you embarrass him, that's when you get into trouble. Because the Gemara says that the whole story of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, the reason why it led to the destruction of Beis Hamikdash, wasn't necessarily because of this, it wasn't necessarily because of that, but the lashon of the Gemara is, Tanya Amr Rebbe Lazar, says Nun Zayin Amud Aleph in Gittin, Boyu Re'ei Kamagdele Koicha Shal Busha, come and see how powerful it is when you embarrass somebody else. Sharei Siya HaKadosh Baruch Hu Es Bar Kamsa Vehecher Ves Beisai Vesaref Eseicholah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was willing to give up the Beis HaMikdash because of the embarrassment that Bar Kamsa had to go through. Can you imagine such a thing? I'm not saying that it's one thing is for sure. If you embarrass that kid, he's not going to like you. Huh? I heard from my Rosh Hashiva, Zol Gesundheit, Rav Shachter Shlita. He actually says Erev Tisha B'Av. Every year of Tisha B'Av, he gives a mimer. He talks about Tisha B'Av. And one year he was talking about Senas Chinam and V'yavta L'Orecha Kamoicha, and he said a very interesting thing. And I think it's a davar pashut in what V'yavta L'Orecha Kamoicha is. It says, just like we saw in the Gemara Shabbos, that Madaloch Sani L'Chavrach Lo Yisavid. Don't do things to somebody else you wouldn't like to be done to you. Right? Okay. But he says, don't do things that are going to cause other people not to like you. Don't be that guy that blows his nose on top of his lung so loud that the windows shake in shul in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei, in the middle of Chazar Zashat. No one likes that. You have to do that, go across the street and blow down someone else's house. Yeah? Don't do things that are going to annoy other people. They don't enjoy it. It's not a mitzvah to annoy others. Yeah, and then the guy's going to say, I have to come to shul. I can't leave shul. So, fine, that's a different story. Yeah? But upon him, that's what the Gemara Shabbos is. And that's how a person can be mekayim all the mitzvahs. Number one, again, is to do mitzvahs b'shem kol Yisrael. Number two is to learn about the mitzvahs. On top of that, I want to say again, that it's important, how can we be mizabel on the Beis HaMikdash that we never saw, we didn't know what it was, we don't know anything about it, Kimat. Huh? If I were to ask you, what did the daily schedule in the Beis HaMikdash look like? Could you answer me? Could you tell me? What did they do? How did they daven in the Beis HaMikdash? Huh? Where did they daven in the Beis HaMikdash? Did they make a sukkah in the Beis HaMikdash on Sukkot? Where did they light the menorah on Chanukah? Huh? They lit the menorah every day, right? Yeah. There's many, many questions that you always have to ask yourself about the Beis HaMikdash. Did they make a Pesach Seder in the Beis HaMikdash? Huh? You shaking your head no? Maybe. What if I tell you that there was something called the Korban Pesach that you never even thought about once in your life? That's where everyone had the Pesach Seder, was the Korban Pesach. That's what it was all about. Yeah? The Gemara says in Zvachim, the Gemara is talking about how the Korban Pesach looked. The Gemara goes to great detail of telling over the story of what it looked like Erev Pesach. The Gemara says that the Kohanim were walking past almost up to their knees in the blood. That's how much blood from all the Karbanos Pesach were flying around in the Azor. The famous letter, I think it was the Rebbe of Chaim Zonnerfeld wrote to Rav Kook, and he wrote to him that you should be zeicha to walk in blood up to your knees. So I'm trying to figure out what does he mean by that? He said, no. He means that we should be zeicha to have the Beis HaMikdash and to have the Korban Pesach. Yeah. There's a fellow who put out Svarim. I don't know who he is, but I know about it because I've seen the Sefer being sold in different shuls, and I went through a little bit the Sefer myself, where he wrote many different things of what life was like in the Beis HaMikdash. What did the Leviim sing? Again, all these questions that I'm asking you right now, he has a whole Sefer that's answering all the questions of what happened in the Beis HaMikdash. Most of them are Mishnayos. Most of them can be answered in the Gemara. Sure. That's Josephus. A lot of Josephus was written down based on what he saw there. And the Gemara tells us that if the Goyim, if the Ummah Ha'olam would realize what a protection the Beis HaMikdash would be for them, they would have protected it and they would have guarded it, because, like we spoke the other day, that on Sukkot we bring Shivim Parim, or Makriv 70 cows in the Beis HaMikdash. What do we Makriv 70 cows for? Keneged the Shivim Umas, Keneged the 70 nations of the world. And to show that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was Mavdil Loisonu Mikol Ha'amim. And Ato V'chartonu Mikol Ha'amim, that's what Shmini Atzeres was. We spoke about that when we spoke about Tefillah. So that was that. So that's a little bit about the Beis HaMikdash. But in order to really appreciate, again, any door, the Gemara says that any door that the Beis HaMikdash was not rebuilt, it's as if the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed. And the Gemara getting over here goes weiter and says a whole bunch of stories about a certain city, big city in Mitzrayim, and they ended up all getting killed. And the Gemara goes on and on about the Tzidkis, and the Gemara goes on and on about the Madregas of Yerushalayim, and then the Gemara says that they all got destroyed. So, frankly, Gemara, if they did so many good things and they had such a level of Shemir Mitzvahs and such a level of Yerushalayim, why did they get destroyed? So, Zak the Gemara. This is further down in Zayin Amud Aleph. If they were such great tzaddikim, why they deserve to get punished? They did not mourn the loss of Yerushalayim. Pasuk in Yeshaya, to rejoice and be mesameach with Yerushalayim, and all those that love Yerushalayim, sisu itam masois kol mesablam aleha, all those that can appreciate Yerushalayim, they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to be mesameach with Yerushalayim. And those that are not misabel on Yerushalayim, they're not going to be able to see the simcha of Yerushalayim. You know, it's interesting, because like we're learning Cheluk, we're learning, like the Gemara says at the very beginning, that somebody doesn't believe in Tchias HaMesim doesn't get Tchias HaMesim. Same concept here. Someone doesn't believe in the Beis HaMikdash, someone who doesn't appreciate the loss, or doesn't know what the loss of the Beis HaMikdash was, then he's not going to have the loss of the Beis HaMikdash. You know? It's not your fault. You know? You didn't do anything wrong why you don't know about the Beis HaMikdash. How are you supposed to know about it? Huh? That's what I'm telling you, that we have to learn about it to know what it was about. The Gemara says in Brachas that one of the things that's a school of Arichas Yomim is Hamarich HaShulchanai. Somebody who sits by his table for a long time. That seems very interesting. I'm sitting by a table for 40 minutes now. About 35 minutes now. What's this matzav of sitting by the table for a long time? So the Gemara says, because maybe an ani is going to come and I'll be able to accommodate him. So the Mefarshim will grapple with the question over here, that what's the point over here? What's the Gemara mean? Why is it that if I sit by my table for a long time, if I pravas a langa suda for a long time, that I'm going to be zeichet tarichas yamim? The pshat is because if a poor person knocks on the door and asks me for food, I'll give him food that's very nice. But if I bring him into my house and I sit him down and I tell him, oh, we just started the Suda, come and join us. Yeah, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I'll tell you a great story. I heard it from the Baal HaMaisa. My grandparents used to live in Highland Park, New Jersey. And there was a hospital near there, and many from people that would go to the hospital, that would be in the hospital, would stay by my grandparents over Shabbos. And it was in the middle of the winter. It was one of the earliest Shabbosim of the year. And there was around 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. And there was a family that was, the wife was in the hospital. She was having a baby. And, the husband, that I think was just the husband, stayed by my grandparents. And he told my grandfather that, he shouldn't wait for him Shabbos day for the Suda, because he doesn't know, because of the snow, how long it's going to take him to walk back. It was about a half-hour walk each way, without the snow. So with the snow, double that. And Shabbos afternoon around 2 or 3 o'clock, the fellow opens the door to the house, and my grandfather's sitting by the table, and he belts out, V'shamar b'nei Yisrael, it's Shabbos, starts making Kiddush. See, he says to my grandfather, he says, I told you not to wait. See, he says, did you have hot cholent today? He says, no. He says, that's why I waited for you. I know you told me not to wait. But I want you to have a hot cholent. See, he waited for him. Who cares? You can't have hot shalom past chatzos. Sometimes you're allowed to, don't be so frum of Yenas cheshbon. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what the Gemara means when the Gemara says marichin loy yomov. Yeah. Why am I telling this to you? Well, what's this got to do with Tisha B'av? So first of all, stam as I look at that Gemara, because that Gemara continues and says that Bizman Shebeis HaMikdash Kayom, the Mizbeach was mechaper, people's averis, but today Shulchanei Shel Adam is mechaper. A person's table is mechaper. By inviting guests and having people over and setting your table up in a way, setting your sudas up in a way that you're willing to extend yourself many hours after you originally planned on staying by the suda, right? So that you could accommodate somebody and make him feel good by inviting him in. You're raising your hand? Yeah. Oh, okay. So could we go a few minutes over time? Yeah. Okay, good. So I think that the reason why that there's a kapara that Achshav Shulchanei Shel Adam is mechaper olav is because of what happened with Kamsa and Bar Kamsa. Again, if we're not familiar with the story, we'll go through it quite quickly. Kamsa and Bar Kamsa didn't get along with each other. They were enemies. And as we just mentioned before, and he sent a shliach. We still don't know who this anonymous person was who's making the Suda. And he sent somebody to go and bring Kamsa. And the Shliach spaced out. He didn't get the memo. And he brings in Bar Kamsa. So this guy sitting there, all the Rabbonim are sitting there, which was the Iker problem. And he said, excuse me, I told you not to, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. So what do you mean? You invited me. No, I didn't mean you. I meant the other guy. So he gets up and he embarrasses him in front of everybody, as the Gemara says. And he says, get out of here, you don't belong here. He says, I'll pay for my portion. I don't care. He says, I'll pay for half the Suda. He says, get out of here, I don't care. He says, I'll pay for the whole Suda. He says, I don't care. So he says, listen, the Rabbanan were there and they weren't Meicha. I have to go and make problems over here. You always have those guys, you meet up with them every now and then, the problem today is because of all the rabbis. The rabbis are the ones that cause all the problems. Yeah. So the question is, Taka, why weren't the Chacham and Meicha? So one could argue, and some of us would Taka learn like this, they didn't know. It was a very big party, they didn't see. It's not mistaber to say that because it says that he was running around by the pashtus is that the Balabayas, whoever he was involved with everybody during the Suda. But the Churban Abayis, the Churban Beis HaMikdash came about because of how somebody was mistreated by a Suda. You could come, you can't come. You're invited, you're not invited. Huh? By Chassidim, there's a minhag that before the Chasana they make a Suda Saniyim. And there's a minhag, I know in my family, that the day of the Chasana they give out a lot of tzedakah, and they give money to people, we give money to people who Taka can't afford to make weddings, to be able to give simcha to other yidden. By not inviting to somebody, that embarrassment, that shame, he was so badly insulted and so badly hurt, he went to the king, he went to the Roman king, and he told him, Mordechai Yehudai, so the Jews are rebelling against you. And then, whatever the whole story was, he tells them to bring a korban, he makes a mum in the korban, so then they're not going to bring it. So then the whole Ishtalshus Advarim until the Beis HaMikdash got destroyed. And what's fascinating is because the Gemara Brachas and the Gemara elsewhere uses the lashon of when Klal Yisrael goes into Galus, Oy lahem labonim shegolu me'al shulchan aviyim. Woe to the children that got chased away from their father's table. Yeah? I don't know how you guys were when you were growing up. But I could imagine that sometimes the Shabbos your father wanted it to be a certain way, to have a certain decorum. And, you're throwing tissues at this one, you're flicking the other one in the ear, and it's pasnish, and whatever, the whole situation gets to the hand. Your father tells you to leave the table. Like, you could hear such a thing. It's not terrible. I mean, it's embarrassing, whatever. Can you imagine that all kinds of chashva people are here, and then the guy says, you leave the Suda, get out of here? The Rabbanan are there, the Rabbanan are Meicha. Zak the Gemara, the Rabbanu were Meicha Shema Mina Kanecha Lahu. Shema Mina, they were okay with the fact that they were throwing him out. Because the Rabbanan said that we could give them Mussar, but they're not going to listen anyways. You know, well, why should we give Mussar? Why should we tell them what to do? But anyway, it's not going to listen to us. What? So that's a very big problem. Yeah. But I think that's what's going on over here. The Gemara Sanhedrin says that the way to bring people together is by sitting and fabranging with them. You know, what's this concept by Hasidim that they sit by and they fabrang? What is it? What's the point? So the Gemara says, I want to show it to you inside. It's the Gemara Sanhedrin. Legima means drinking, giving somebody else a drink. I give you something to drink, I give you something to eat. We become shutz, we become partners, we become very, very close friends. Yeah? This person didn't want the other fellow to come into the suda, so he threw him out. It's the bottom of Gimel Amud Beis in Sanhedrin. Gedela l'gima she'erchika shtei mishpachos miYisrael shenemar al davar shel lekinu betzchem b'lechem u'b'mayim. Rabbi Yechanan didei omar marchekes es akroivim makareves es rechoikim u'ma'alemes einayim in arisham u'mashresh shchina al nevi'ei abal v'shigagose oila zodan marchekes es akroivim amin u'mayav. And the Gemara goes on and on about if it's not done properly, if it's not done the right way, meaning if you know, we hear all the time the story that the sister didn't invite that brother-in-law to the wedding, and this and that, and this one got insulted, and that one got insulted. What do you think happened? Kamsa bar Kamsa. The wrong person got the invitation and showed up, and that's what was caused the churban. It wasn't just because of that, because that's what caused the churban, but it was like the Gemara says, it was the busha. It was the embarrassment that he put him through. You know, let's say, you know, I'm giving a share here to the councils of Camp Yedida. Yeah, good. Let's say next week a whole busload of guys from Camp Brahman will come and show up to the shir. I have to come to the shir. Why should I throw them out? What do I care? Huh? I'm so makbid on my cover that I'm only giving shir to you and I don't give shir to them. What do I? If I make a wedding, I make a party. I want everyone to have a good time. What do I care if Yenna doesn't have? Why do I care if Yenna wasn't invited? Let him show up. Yeah. It was a sad story, but you know. Whatever the story was, my family was making a simcha, and some people claimed that they were not invited, and it led to a whole sequence of events, whatever it was. But the point was that my father kept on saying, "We have an open house. The door is open. Just come in. You come on random nights altogether. So when we make a simcha, you don't come. Of course, you're invited." The nekuda is. I think that the lesson we should learn from here is that we should go out of our way to be mekar of our friends, to spend time with them, to be mekar of as halvavis, and to get to know another person. And there's a certain chavershaft, there's a certain friendship that you have with a person, a certain relationship that you have when you give somebody to eat. Achshav shulchanei shel adam is mechaper olav. And I think that that's the pshat why the Gemara says that oilam labanim shagolum el shulchan aviyah. You know, imagine this kid gets chased away from the Suda, his father chased him away from the Suda. He was misbehaving, he was chutzpah to the father chased him away. Yeah? You know what the Churban Beis HaMikdash was? It wasn't just that Klal Yisrael went into Golus. It was Ki'ilu the father was so upset and he was in such a rage, he took the whole table and threw it over. Flipped over the whole table. Everybody leaves. The father leaves, the mother leaves, the kids leave, and the food is all over the place. The entire thing is a churban. That's what the Beis HaMikdash was. That's what the Churban Beis HaMikdash was. Whatever we had was destroyed. There's nothing left of it. Afterwards, you could go and put the pieces back together, whatever it was. But I think that that's a very, very stark point of why the Gemara says that somebody who's marich al shulchanoi is marichin layom abu shnoisav. Somebody who spends a long time by his table anticipating that somebody might need a meal and might knock on the door. So, the Nakuda, I think the Gemara is, between the lines of the Gemara here, there's something showing a certain sensitivity to the ani. What's it so bad if the ani knocks on the door and you give him a bag of chips, you give him a Danish, you invite him in for a coffee, you know? In the middle of the winter, a guy knocks on your door, invite him in for a bowl of soup, a hot tea. In the summer, you give him a cold seltzer. Why does the Gemara say, why do you have to be marich al shulchanoi? Because many times, if the ani is going to A, have to wait for you to set up the meal for him, or B, see that you're going out of your way to help him, he's going to feel very embarrassed. In order to avoid that, the Suda is still going on. Come, Zetzachavek, pull up a chair. Have something. We'll serve you. We're in the middle of the meal. Maricha l'yamav v'shaisa doesn't just mean you'll live a long life. It's a bracha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give a person, that he's going to have what he needs and live a good life. Because you're going out of your way to help another person in need, in a way of real sensitivity. So that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants from us. That's what we need to do. We need to make sure that we're going to be inviting for everybody and be welcoming for everybody. And Bez Hashem, we should be zeicha to see the Binyan Bayis Hashlishi and we should be zeicha to the Nechama of Tziyam Yerushalayim. All right. Just want to tell everybody that if they want, tomorrow afternoon,